They didn't mean to start a war. The UHS Pathfinder wasn't built for that. It was just a scout ship, a sleek, underfunded explorer designed to map unclaimed systems, not to stumble into the heart of the most brutal empire in the galaxy. Captain Darius Cole leaned over the navigation screen, jaw clenched. "This isn't Rossin territory," he muttered, voice low and tense. "This isn't even neutral space." "What the hell is that?" said Tariq, his weapons officer, eyes wide as he stared at the tactical display. "Cap, we've got at least 30 war signatures closing in. Energy spikes, cloaked fortresses, drone swarms. I don't even know what half of this is." Darius didn't answer right away. His eyes scanned the shimmering blue overlay, unnamed planets, orbiting death machines, and one central monolith of a station that radiated power like a dying star. He swallowed hard. The Vylari, a name whispered in secret by traders and smugglers, an empire that had erased species from existence without warning. Their ships were rare to see, because if you saw one, you didn't live to talk about it. "Stealth's gone," Tariq said. "They're pinging us with something. Not radar. It's invasive. I think they're scanning our brains, Cap." Darius exhaled sharply. "Get me open comms. Fast." The bridge lights dimmed as the enemy linked in. A cold, sterile voice filled the room. "Primitive vessel, you have entered the sacred domain of the Vylari Dominion. Identify your species and prepare for immediate surrender." Tariq looked at Darius, expecting diplomacy, pleading, maybe even submission. But Darius wasn't built like that. He stepped forward, lifted his chin, and stared dead into the screen. "This is Captain Darius Cole of the Pathfinder, United Human Systems. We crossed into your territory by accident. We don't want to fight." There was a pause. Then came the laughter. Not human laughter. No, something higher-pitched, cruel, and empty of emotion. Mocking. "A human?" the voice hissed. "How quaint. You'll be dissected for entering our space. Surrender and you may be preserved for study." Darius stared at the display. No face appeared, just a cold Vylari insignia, a twisted glyph of control. He didn't blink. "No." Tariq's head snapped up. "Sir?" "No," Darius repeated, louder this time. "We're not surrendering." There was silence again. Only this time it came with power spikes. The Vylari ships had heard the refusal. They were locking weapons. "They think we're weak," Darius said quietly, "because we're human, because we don't worship empires, because we don't kneel. But Cap, they'll kill us. Then they'll find out how hard we are to kill." The entire ship felt it. That shift. That grim, stubborn refusal to roll over. Orders spread. Shields powered up. Guns primed. It was suicide. The Pathfinder couldn't outrun them. Couldn't overpower them. But it could fight like hell. The first boarding team came in fast. Sleek pods crashing into the lower hull. Darius had the hallways rigged. Not with sleek defense grids like the Vylari had, but with Earth's style. Pressure mines, acid vents, burst flash charges, and raw, brute force traps. One step in, and the screams began. They weren't ready. They weren't ready for the chaos, for the unpredictability, for the sheer human refusal to go quietly. Tariq's voice crackled over the intercom. "We got 3 of them down. 4th one's limping back to their pod." Darius smirked. "Let them run. Let them tell the others." He wasn't trying to win this battle. He was trying to make a point. That humans weren't prey. That this primitive race they mocked would rather burn than bow. They held out longer than they should have. Hours passed. Then a day. The Vylari pulled back, not out of respect, but out of confusion. It was the first time anyone had resisted. And that scared them. Rumors began leaking through black market communications. A human ship. A male captain who didn't kneel. A suicidal defiance that made the Vylari pause. Something dangerous had been awakened, and the mighty throne of the Empire had felt the first crack. The damage was everywhere: gutted corridors, ruptured pipes, exposed wiring sparking like angry snakes. The Pathfinder was bleeding, but it was still alive. And so was Captain Darius Cole. He limped through the main corridor, a makeshift bandage wrapped around his thigh where a Vylari shock blade had torn through. The pain was dull now, replaced by adrenaline and the cold fire of purpose. He passed a shattered viewing panel and glanced out. They hadn't left. The Vylari fleet remained, dark shapes drifting silently like predators in deep space, watching, waiting, studying. Cowards, Darius muttered. Inside the war room, Tariq and the rest of the command crew were gathered around the tactical table. Faces were bruised, clothes torn, but their eyes, those were sharp now, sharper than ever. "They're not attacking," Tariq said. "I think they're trying to figure us out." "Good," Darius replied. "That means we've already won the first fight." Ensign Riva, the youngest on the ship and fresh out of the academy, looked up. "We're still alive, sir, but we won't be for long if they decide to finish us off." Darius studied the room. They expected submission. Not defiance. Now we've got them second-guessing. That's leverage. Tariq leaned forward. "Leverage doesn't keep us in the sky. Shields are down to 19%. Engines are overheating, and weapons are running on scraps. We're barely hanging on." Darius stepped up to the console and tapped into the comm logs. "Then let's do something they don't expect." He pulled up the Vylari frequency, a tight band signal used for command-level transmissions, forbidden to outsiders. He shouldn't have had it, but Darius had made friends in dark places before this mission even began. "What are you doing?" Riva whispered. "I'm picking a fight with a god," Darius said with a grim smile. The comm cracked open. A hollow silence answered. Then came the voice, again. The same one from earlier. Distant, emotionless, but laced with contempt. "You still breathe, insect. Why?" Darius stepped close to the mic. "Because you underestimated us. You are primitive, undisciplined. You fight like animals." He grinned. "Exactly. And animals don't follow rules. That's why you're scared." Another pause. "You amuse the council, so we offer a deal. Surrender yourself. Be judged. Your crew will be spared." A dozen eyes turned to Darius. He didn't hesitate. "No. This is not a negotiation, human. It is now." The channel went dead. No one spoke. Tariq finally said what everyone was thinking. "You just told the galaxy's most powerful empire to go to hell." Darius turned away from the console and began pacing. "We need to turn this into something bigger than us. If we're going to die, we die loud. We make them bleed so the rest of the galaxy sees they're not invincible." "You want to start a war?" Riva asked, pale. Darius shook his head. "I want to start something they can't control. Rebellions. Resistance. Hope." Riva swallowed hard, then nodded. "Hope, from a wrecked ship and a pissed-off captain." He grinned. "Stranger things have started empires." The next few hours were brutal. The crew patched hull breaches with whatever they could find: metal plating, foam welds, even scrap from destroyed Vylari drones. They cannibalized their own escape pods for power cells. The medbay ran out of painkillers, but the wounded stayed on duty. Every soul aboard Pathfinder knew they weren't making it home, but they'd make sure their names were remembered. Later, in the dim corridor outside engineering, Darius stood alone. He stared at a small picture taped to the wall. His little sister, back on Terra Nova, wearing his old flight jacket. She believed he was off discovering stars, not fighting gods. "I'm sorry, kid," he whispered, "but I gotta do this." Behind him, the alert klaxons screamed. The Vylari were coming again, but this time it wasn't a boarding party. It was a full-on assault, and Darius Cole smiled. Let's make this the fight they never forget. The ship groaned like it was alive, metal aching under the weight of incoming fire. The Pathfinder rocked hard as the first blast hit. Not a warning shot this time, but a precision strike aimed at the engines. Sparks exploded across the bridge. Crew hit the floor. Smoke hissed from the vents like the ship itself was exhaling its last breath. Darius Cole hauled himself upright. "Status! Port stabilizers gone," shouted Tariq, coughing as he fought through the smoke. "We're spinning. Engines are about to overheat. If we push them again, we might blow." "Then don't stop," Darius barked. "Let them blow with us." Riva scrambled back to her station, blood trickling from a cut above her brow. "They're deploying drones, dozens of them, circling us like sharks." He looked at the display. It wasn't a fleet anymore. It was an execution squad. The Velari had stopped watching. Now they wanted to erase. "Route emergency power to aft shields and lock in random evasive patterns," Darius said. "We don't match them in firepower, but we can make damn sure we stay a pain in their side." The bridge was chaos, but it was controlled chaos. Orders flew, alarms screamed, and still they fought. Outside the hull, the battle was merciless. The Pathfinder, damaged and burning, darted through the swarm of enemy drones like a cornered animal with nothing left to lose. The drones were perfect. Polished, synchronized killers with energy blades and rail cannons. But they were predictable. Humans weren't. "Deploy decoy beacons," Darius ordered. "Then cut comms. I want us silent." Riva looked confused. "Silent, sir?" Darius grinned. "They're used to enemies begging for mercy. Let's give them silence. Make them wonder what we're planning." For the next 10 minutes, the Pathfinder played dead. It let itself drift. No lights, no signals, nothing but the hollow thrum of life support humming beneath the deck. The Velari paused their attack, cautious, curious. Then, slowly, they began pulling back. And that's when Darius struck. "Now!" he shouted. The false heat signatures they'd spread in the debris field flared up, pulling drones off course. Then came the mines, crudely built, but devastating in close quarters. Dozens of Velari units were torn apart in an instant. "Direct hit on their right wing!" Riva shouted, eyes wide with shock. "One of their cruisers just turned away." Tariq slammed his fist on the console. "That's right, run, you shiny bastards!" But Darius wasn't smiling anymore. Because the bigger ships weren't moving. They weren't even reacting. Something else was coming. "Everyone, quiet," he said. The room fell still. Then they saw it. A new vessel emerged from behind the Velari's front line. It was 3 times the size of their others. Sleek, silver, humming with unnatural light. It didn't move like a ship. It glided, like space itself bent around it. "What the hell is that?" whispered Riva. Darius knew. Not by name, but by instinct. A flagship. The real one. That was the throne. And whoever was aboard wasn't interested in prisoners. The comms flared again. No laughter this time. No arrogance. Just a simple, icy voice. "You have been entertaining, human. But now, the Sovereign speaks." The bridge fell silent. The weight of that word, sovereign, settled in everyone's bones. Darius stepped forward. "Then let him speak!" The voice that answered wasn't mechanical. It was alive. Deep. Smooth like glass, but sharp like a blade under the skin. "You are an anomaly. A statistical outlier. You should have died in the first strike. And yet, you resist." "I don't care what your charts say," Darius replied. "You don't know humans. We know enough. You fight without unity. You survive through desperation. That is not strength. That is chaos." "No," Darius said calmly. "That's will, and it's what's going to break your throne." There was silence. Then, without warning, the flagship fired. The beam was silent, white-hot, and precise. It didn't aim for the engines. It didn't aim for weapons. It aimed for the bridge. The impact shattered the viewing screen and threw everyone backward. Flames engulfed the left side of the room. Darius hit the ground, his ears ringing, vision swimming. He couldn't hear, couldn't see clearly. But he crawled through the smoke, dragging himself to the control panel, fingers burned and bleeding. He slammed the emergency shield button. The backup dome locked in over the command center just before the vacuum could rip them all out. He lay there, breathing hard, chest heaving. That was the Sovereign's hello. But Darius wasn't done. He pulled himself upright, staring through the cracked dome at the enemy ship glowing in the distance. "You came all this way," he rasped, blood dripping from his mouth, "to kill one human ship?" He spat on the floor. "Then maybe you're more scared than you look." Smoke clung to the ceiling like a curse. The bridge lights flickered in and out, struggling to stay alive, just like the crew. Captain Darius Cole sat slumped against the bulkhead. The skin on his left arm blistered from the heat, his shirt scorched and torn. His breath came in short bursts, but his eyes were clear, alive, furious. The Sovereign's ship loomed outside, untouched by the chaos it had unleashed, a floating monument to Vailari perfection. It didn't move because it didn't have to. It just was, and its presence made the entire crew feel like ants crawling through fire. Darius pulled himself upright using the shattered console. His fingers shook as he reconnected a power relay with half-melted wires. Sparks bit into his skin, but he didn't stop. "Weapon systems?" he croaked. Tariq wiped blood from his forehead. "Offline. Comms are fried. Shield grid's got maybe one more hit in it before we're toast." "What about the core?" Riva, her voice weak, checked the engineering feed. "Holding, barely. If we divert everything to engines, we might get one burn." One Darius nodded slowly. "Then we use it." Tariq stared at him. "Use it to what? Run? That monster out there will swat us like a bug. We can't outrun something that bends space." Darius turned and stared at the glowing Sovereign ship. "Not running?" Riva squinted. "Wait, you're not thinking of—" "I'm ramming it," he said flatly. Silence slammed over the bridge like a door shut tight. "You've lost it," Tariq muttered. "Cap, you're concussed, bleeding. There's no tactical logic to this. That thing will shred us before we get close." "Exactly," Darius replied. "They expect logic, strategy, clean battles. We don't give them that. We give them something dirty, something they'll remember." "But we'll die," Riva said, her voice barely audible. Darius looked at her. There was no anger in his eyes, just a brutal kind of calm. "Yeah, we might." He took a breath, coughed hard, and steadied himself on the command rail. "But here's what I know. If we die quiet, they'll erase us. But if we hit them hard, direct, bloody, they'll never forget us. And someone out there, some scared colony world or enslaved race, they'll see it, they'll know." Riva nodded slowly. "That someone stood up to them." Tariq let out a bitter laugh. "Well, hell, if we're going out, might as well go out like bastards." Darius gave a grim smile. "Exactly." They went to work. What was left of the crew funneled everything into propulsion. Life support got cut. Lights went black. Internal systems were drained dry. The Pathfinder became a single-purpose weapon, a burning spear. "We've got one shot," Tariq said, gripping the manual ignition. Darius stepped up to the cracked viewport and looked at the Sovereign. "Then we aim for its heart." Riva pulled herself over to navigation. "We can't plot a full course, but I can lock trajectory. It'll take us straight through their forward hull, if we last long enough." Alarms screamed. The Sovereign had noticed the change. Its ship shifted, charging up its next beam. Faster this time. No more hesitation. "They're going to fire again," Riva said, heart pounding. "Then we beat them to the punch." Darius sat in the captain's chair, fingers gripping the armrests like a man clinging to the edge of a cliff. "Hit it!" Tariq slammed the ignition. The Pathfinder roared. The engine screamed like a dying god, every bolt in the hull vibrating as it shot forward. The entire ship groaned, burning itself alive just to move. Darius leaned forward in his seat, eyes locked on the glowing heart of the Sovereign's vessel. The Velari ship flinched. Darius saw it. They weren't prepared for this. Their weapons fired, but the blast missed. By inches. The Pathfinder spun through the flames like a comet. The impact was violent, deafening, and brilliant. The nose of the human ship struck the Sovereign's hull like a thunderclap in vacuum. There was no explosion at first, just a ripple, a shimmer. Then the light tore through the darkness. Both ships vanished in a blinding flash that could be seen from orbit, and then silence. The Pathfinder was gone. So was the front half of the Sovereign ship. Chunks of alloy and alien tech floated in the debris field. Flames flickered and died in the emptiness. But the message had been sent. One human ship, one mad captain, one suicidal strike, and the galaxy had seen it. The wreckage drifted in silence. Shattered metal twisted through the void like the remains of a fallen god. What was left of the Pathfinder spun slowly, its hull ripped open. Trails of scorched plating scattered across miles of space. The Vailari flagship, the once pristine embodiment of imperial power, was wounded, a smoking gash carved into its forward deck. Fires raged where there should have been silence. Inside the ruins of the Pathfinder, emergency lights blinked dimly in rhythm, flickering like the last heartbeat of a dying beast. Then, movement. A hand shoved through twisted metal, bloodied, burned, alive. Darius Cole dragged himself from the crushed remains of the forward chamber, coughing up black soot. His body was wrecked. Every limb screamed in protest, ribs cracked, one eye swollen shut. But he was breathing. Barely. He stumbled to a partial viewport, jagged glass slicing into his palm as he braced himself against it. He saw the Sovereign, still floating, still intact, but damaged, its invincibility shattered. "You're still up," he whispered, coughing out blood. "But so am I." Behind him, two more figures crawled out of the debris, Tariq, limping, missing his left arm from the elbow down, and Riva, covered in burns but standing, eyes wide with disbelief. "Cap..." Tariq's voice was hoarse, cracked. "We're alive?" Darius didn't answer. He was staring at something else now, outside the wreckage. Smaller ships, dozens of them, not Vailari. They hovered at the edge of the debris field, watching, hesitating. Riva squinted through the cracked panel. "Are those..." She didn't finish. One of the ships blinked its lights, a coded signal. Recognition. Another blinked. Then another. The comms came to life, barely holding on. Static, broken words, but real voices. "This is the free arc of Doranus, confirming human contact. Heard the explosion from our quadrant. Never thought we'd see the Vailari bleed. Captain Cole, if you're still breathing, you've just started something bigger than you can imagine." Darius closed his eyes for a moment, just to feel the weight of it all settle. They'd seen it. The galaxy had seen it. He opened the emergency broadcast channel and leaned in, his voice low but steady. "This is Captain Darius Cole, of what's left of the Pathfinder." He looked up at the Sovereign, still burning in the distance. We came here by mistake." He paused. "But we stayed on purpose." Across space, signals began lighting up, ships declaring their presence, colonies, smugglers, former Vylari subjects long silent. Some voices sounded hopeful, others just angry. They weren't organized, not yet. But Darius had lit the spark. Tariq sat down against the bulkhead, blood trailing from his stump. "So what now?" "They've got more ships. We're 1 foot in the grave." Darius looked at him, fire still alive in his eyes. "Then we show them something new, something they've never seen before." Riva leaned in. "What's that?" He smiled through cracked lips. "A united galaxy that fights back." Far off, deep in the Vylari High Command, word of the incident was already spreading like a virus, and the Sovereign, though alive, had been damaged, publicly. For the first time in 1,000 years, the throne wasn't feared. It was questioned, all because one human refused to kneel. The underground halls of the asteroid base buzzed with unfamiliar life. 3 weeks had passed since the Pathfinder's suicidal assault shattered the illusion of Vylari invincibility. News of Captain Darius Cole's stand had spread like wildfire, faster than any comm relay ever could. Stories grew, mutated. Some said he rammed the Sovereign flagship alone. Others claimed he'd boarded it, face bloodied, and set the core to overload with his bare hands. The truth didn't matter now. What mattered was that for the first time in centuries, people believed the Vylari could bleed. Inside the repurposed base, once a mining station, now a war council, Darius stood at the center of a circular chamber. Still wrapped in bandages, still walking with a limp, but standing tall. His uniform was scorched and patched, his beard rough from recovery, but his eyes burned brighter than ever. Around him, the room was full. Half the people here shouldn't even be in the same building, let alone at the same table. A crusty ex-pirate from the Serix Rims. A rebel leader from the drowned cities of Zel-Loren. A defected Vylari scientist who refused to wear their insignia. And dozens of others, smugglers, exiles, orphaned fleet captains, freedom fighters, civilians who had watched their homes burn. "I didn't call you here to start a war," Darius said, his voice even. "The Vylari already started it. We've just been too scattered to fight back." The scientist, Visari, thin and ghost-eyed, crossed her arms. "They'll retaliate for what you did. The Sovereign was damaged, publicly. They'll need to reassert dominance, quickly." "Then let them come," said the ex-pirate, a wiry man with a voice like broken glass. "You cracked their mask. If we hit them again, fast and loud, people might finally realize they don't have to live under a boot." Murmurs spread. Darius let them talk, but his mind was already 10 moves ahead. He hadn't just survived that day, he'd learned. About them, about how they think, how they rule, and how terrified they were of unpredictability. "Listen," he said finally, and the room fell quiet. "We're not going to beat the Vylari with fleets. They have millions of ships. They've bred themselves into war machines." He stepped forward, hand resting on the edge of the old console table. "But they've never faced chaos. Not real chaos. They've never fought an enemy that doesn't play by their rules." Riva, seated beside Tariq in a powered exo-brace, nodded. "You mean guerrilla strikes, sabotage, raids?" "I mean making the galaxy ungovernable for them," Darius said. "We hit their supply lines, free their labor camps, hijack their comms and broadcast truth, turn their propaganda into poison." Tariq chuckled darkly. "You're asking a bunch of pissed-off exiles to become a resistance." "I'm asking them to become more," Darius said, "to become a legend." Silence hung, thick and alive. Then Visari spoke. "You want to ignite a movement?" "No," Darius said. "I already did." He turned and keyed up the comm console. Dozens of scattered signals blinked on a star map, small dots like flickers of candlelight in the dark. These are independent cells, hidden rebel pockets. They've stayed quiet because they thought they were alone. He turned back to the room. They're not anymore. The pirate leaned back, impressed. You're serious? As a heart attack, Darius said. A low buzz echoed through the base. Someone was arriving. The security comm crackled. Sir, you're not going to believe this. Darius stepped into the hallway as a new ship touched down in the hangar. He watched the ramp lower and blinked in disbelief. A Vilary soldier, a full-blooded elite, wearing torn insignia and battle-worn armor, stepped out, hands raised. His face was grim. I heard the Sovereign bled, the soldier said. I've waited years for that. Darius said nothing. I'm here to help burn their empire to the ground. Back inside the war room, the map zoomed out. The flickers grew brighter. More signals, more whispers. Hope was rising. The Vilary had ruled through fear, but now fear had changed sides. The resistance didn't wait. They couldn't. In every corner of the known galaxy, once dead comm channels came alive. Codes long forgotten began to pulse. Hideouts lit their war beacons. For decades, people had whispered about fighting back. After Captain Darius Cole, they shouted. But no one knew if they could win. Not really. That's why Darius chose Volar Station for the first strike. Not a capital. Not a fortress. Just a fortified relay hub in the inner Vilary network. Critical enough to hurt if it fell, but small enough to take before reinforcements arrived. The kind of target that made a statement. We know where you live now. Inside the dropship, Darius strapped in, the harness cutting into his still-healing ribs. His hands rested over the rusted rifle across his lap. It wasn't the standard UHS issue anymore. It had been modified, rebuilt, personalized like everything else they used. Nothing uniform, just functional. Human. Riva sat across from him, suit half-burned, eyes steady. We've got 5 minutes to breach. You sure about this? Darius met her gaze. I'd rather die doing than die hiding. Next to them, the defected Vilary soldier, Sarin, checked his gear. His alien armor had been stripped of its emblems. His movements were stiff, like someone unlearning centuries of control. You know this place? Darius asked him. Sarin nodded once. They won't expect an attack here. It's protocol. Anything below Omega security is considered untouchable. Perfect, Darius muttered. The ship rumbled hard. Stealth entry passed the station's scanner net. Tariq's voice came through the comms from the command ship above. Doors are opening in 10. We've jammed their internal comms for now, but you've got a 10-minute window. After that, they'll scream for backup. Copy that, Darius said, standing. His body groaned with pain, but he didn't care. He needed them to see his face. He wanted them to know who had hit them. The ramp dropped. Heat, screams, blaster fire. They charged into Volar Station like fire let loose. The first hallway was clean. Too clean. Lights clinical, white and humming. Darius didn't trust it. The Vilary were precise. Their silence was never peace. It was preparation. Sarin moved like a ghost through the corridor. Main relay chamber is down this level, 3rd tier, but they'll send autoguards the second we cross the primary sensor line. Riva raised her blaster. So we move loud. The sensor tripped. Red lights flared. Doors burst open. Mechanical Vilary drones poured in. 8-legged death machines with energy blades for arms and glowing optics like soulless eyes. Darius didn't hesitate. Light them up! Gunfire tore through the corridor. Drones shrieked as explosions ripped them apart. Riva ducked under a sweeping blade and planted a plasma charge straight into a drone's midsection. It went down screaming. Darius moved with purpose. No finesse, no grace, just force. He shot 2 drones, smashed a third with the butt of his rifle, then kept running. Saren took point. His knowledge of the station was the only reason they were still alive. The irony wasn't lost on anyone. One of the Empire's own was now their key to tearing it down. They reached the relay core, a massive chamber pulsing with energy, walls lined with black Velari code. This was their neural node. From here, entire sectors were monitored, silenced, or controlled. Darius approached the console. "What now?" Riva asked. He stared at it. "We send a message." Tariq's voice crackled in. "We've got about 4 minutes before their long-range systems reboot. If you're gonna make noise, make it now." Darius pulled a battered data drive from his vest. "Plug this in." The drive contained footage from the Sovereign attack, the Pathfinder's last stand. Everything. It had been recovered, patched, and edited for one purpose: broadcast. Riva locked it in. The screens flickered. A transmission went live. Wideband. Across dozens of worlds, Velari-controlled networks began glitching. Black screens became flickering images. Then they turned solid. Captain Darius Cole's bloodied face appeared. "This is for every world that's lived in silence. Every voice the Empire erased. You're not alone. We're coming." The feed shifted to images of the Sovereign ship burning, Velari troops retreating, rebels rising. Saren stepped up beside him, speaking into the feed in his own language. A message to his people. "You don't have to serve monsters forever." The station began to shake. The security force had arrived. Darius heard the boots, hundreds of them. Riva looked at him. "We're not getting out of here, are we?" "No," he said calmly, "but the message will." They fought their way back, inch by bloody inch. One by one, rebels fell. Saren stayed behind to seal the corridor, buying them time. His last words: "Make them fear their own children." Darius and Riva barely reached the escape hatch. A final blast threw them clear, into the void, just as the station lit up with fire. From orbit, Tariq watched the signal spread like wildfire. World after world tuning in. No more silence. No more obedience. The Velari called it heresy. The galaxy called it hope. The galaxy was burning, but this time not under the Velari flag. In the weeks following the Volar broadcast, chaos spread like a plague through the Dominion. Garrison worlds fell silent. Slave colonies revolted. Entire fleets defected. What began as a suicide mission by a single human ship had become something more terrifying to the Velari than any weapon. Uncontrolled defiance. At the heart of it all stood Captain Darius Cole, bruised, scarred, hunted, but undefeated. He stood now aboard the Resolute, a repurposed Velari cruiser taken during a daring ambush by the rebellion's newest faction. Exiled nobles and ex-soldiers who'd grown tired of the Sovereign's purity. The ship was massive, half destroyed, patched with human tech and scrap. But it flew, and Darius commanded it. He looked out from the bridge, staring at the dark shape in the distance, the Sovereign's vessel. He was back where it all started. But this time, he wasn't here by mistake. Riva stood at his side, her face drawn tight. "We've confirmed the intel. The Sovereign himself is aboard. They know we're coming." "They've known for a long time," Darius said quietly. "But they kept hoping I'd die quietly somewhere. That hope's about to run out." Tariq's voice came in from engineering. "Engines are hot. We're patched together with prayers and plastic wrap, but we can fly." "Good. We don't need to live long. We just need to be loud." The rebel fleet, if you could call it that, moved into position behind them. A ragtag swarm of modified haulers, pirate ships, ancient Terran frigates, and stolen Dominion scouts. It looked like junk from orbit, but Darius knew better. Every single ship in that fleet was furious, and fury was stronger than fear. He opened communications. To everyone listening, this is Darius Cole. That thing out there, that sovereign ship, that's not a god. It's a lie wrapped in metal. It's ruled through silence, through fear, through killing anyone who dared speak up. He paused, glancing at Reva, then out the viewport. We're speaking now. The comms exploded with cheers, war drums, chants in 100 languages, and then battle. The Sovereign's fleet moved like a tide, flawless, disciplined, elegant. But the rebels came like fire, fast and hungry, ignoring formations, targeting weak points, swarming ships with suicidal precision. Inside the Resolute, alarms blared. The hull screamed as it took hit after hit. Reva was thrown against the console. Blood trickled down her temple. Shields at 40%, Darius stayed on course. Hold it steady. Outside, 2 rebel ships slammed into a Vylari cruiser, ripping it apart. Another vessel, flown by defectors, transmitted a false signal and got behind the enemy's rear line, then detonated its core, taking 3 Dominion ships with it. They weren't here to win. They were here to end it. But then, the Sovereign's voice returned, cold, cruel, and calm. Darius Cole, you mistake desperation for strength. You will fall. You were never meant to matter. Darius stepped forward to the comms console. I wasn't meant to survive either. But here I am. You seek chaos, we are order. You're not order, you're a cage. A sudden energy surge hit the Resolute. Lights went dead, systems flickered. Reva screamed, EMP wave! We've lost guidance. The Sovereign's ship powered its main weapon, something ancient, something designed not to destroy but to erase. A beam that could silence the memory of rebellion itself. Darius reached into his coat and pulled out a second drive. The drive. Not footage, not propaganda. A virus. Built by Visari before she died in a sabotage mission. Coded with Dominion architecture. It didn't destroy their systems. It rewrote them. He turned to Reva. Plug this in. She blinked. We'll lose control of the ship. I know. But we'll crash. I know. He smiled, blood on his teeth. But we'll crash into history. She hesitated, then shoved the drive home. The ship roared. Controls failed. Lights burst, and then silence. The Resolute, dead in the water, drifted toward the Sovereign ship. No shields, no weapons, no signals, just one last payload. Inside the Sovereign ship, systems began to glitch. Alarms in the command chamber, lights shifting red. The bridge crew of the Dominion looked to their master, and for the first time in centuries saw confusion. Then Darius's face appeared on every screen. I told you, you're not a god. You're just another throne waiting to fall. The Resolute slammed into the Sovereign. The explosion wasn't fire, it was freedom. The virus spread, systems melted, AI networks collapsed. The Sovereign's dominion began to crumble in real time. Across the galaxy, the effect was instant. Orders stopped. Surveillance blacked out. Entire colonies woke up and realized the eyes were gone. The war wasn't over. But the throne was empty. Darius Cole died a legend. But what he started never died. It grew.